Let go of my arm, Maxwell. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. My voice was low, barely a whisper over the low hum of the jazz quartet playing in the corner of the Sapphire Lounge, but the threat was there. It was a cold, sharp thing, a razor blade hidden in silk. Maxwell Patel blinked, his grip tightening just enough to be annoying, not painful. Yet, don't cause a scene, Harper. I'm doing you a favor. A favor? I looked down at his hand, manicured and heavy with a gold signet ring that looked tacky against his gray suit, then back up to his face. By accosting me in the middle of a private gala? By telling you to leave before security drags you out, he hissed, leaning in. The smell of his cologne, something musky and overly expensive, hit me like a physical blow. It smelled like the past. It smelled like failure. Look around, Harper. This isn't a networking event for struggling assistants. This is the top 1%. The membership fee alone costs more than you used to make in a year. I didn't pull away. Not yet. I just watched him, studying the sweat beading on his upper lip. He was nervous. Maxwell was always nervous when he thought he was losing control of a narrative. Things change, Maxwell, I said calmly. Not that much. Not in 2 years. He sneered, that familiar, cruel twist of his lips that used to make me cry in the bathroom of our shared apartment. You crashed this, didn't you? Trying to snag a rich investor for whatever little AI startup scheme you're running? God, you're embarrassing. I felt a sudden, sharp urge to laugh. It bubbled in my chest, light and airy. 2 years ago, I would have been shaking. I would have been begging him to lower his voice, terrified that people were looking. But that was before the collapse. Before I spent 6 months at a wellness retreat in Jeju, rebuilding my mind from the ground up. Before I learned that silence is louder than screaming. If you enjoy stories where the underdog holds the keys to the castle, make sure to like this video and subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens to Maxwell. I'm not leaving, I said, my voice steady. Then I'll make you. Maxwell turned his head, snapping his fingers aggressively at a passing waiter. Hey, you. Get the manager. We have an intruder. The waiter, a young man with terrified eyes, froze. He looked at Maxwell, then he looked at me. His eyes widened. He didn't move toward the manager. He took a step back, bowing his head slightly in my direction. Maxwell didn't notice. He was too busy preening, adjusting the lapels of his flashy pinstripe suit, confident that the world still spun on his axis. You really haven't changed, I observed, tilting my head. Still loud. Still afraid. Afraid? He laughed, a harsh, barking sound that made heads turn. I'm a platinum member here, Harper. I own 3 tech firms. What do you have? A knockoff dress and a delusion. He reached for me again, his fingers aiming for my elbow to physically steer me toward the exit. That was his mistake. The air in the room changed. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure drop. The jazz quartet didn't stop playing, but the notes seemed to thin out, becoming fragile. The conversations at the nearby tables died, not gradually, but instantly. It was the feeling of oxygen being sucked out of a room before a fire ignites. Maxwell froze, his hand inches from my arm. He frowned, sensing the shift, but too dense to understand it. What the hell is? The double doors at the far end of the lounge, heavy oak reinforced with steel, opened. They didn't slam. They swung open with a smooth, heavy finality. 3 men walked in. The first 2 were security, but not the rental guards Maxwell was used to bullying. These men were Korean, dressed in black suits with no ties, their hair cropped close. They moved with a terrifying efficiency. They didn't look at the crowd. They scanned the perimeter, their eyes cold and dead. One of them, a man I knew as Sung-hyun, moved to the left. He didn't speak. He simply stood in front of the emergency exit and crossed his hands. The message was clear, nobody leaves. Then, the 3rd man entered. Gwang-min. He didn't walk, he glided. He was wearing a midnight blue suit that absorbed the light rather than reflecting it, Italian wool, tailored so perfectly it looked like a second skin. His ash-brown hair was styled back, revealing a forehead that was currently smooth, though his eyes were dark storms. He paused at the top of the stairs leading down into the lounge. He didn't shout. He didn't glare. He just looked. His gaze swept the room, dismissive of the billionaires and socialites, until it locked onto one specific point. Maxwell's hand, hovering near my arm. Maxwell, oblivious to his own extinction, followed the room's gaze. He squinted up at the newcomer. "Who's that?" "Another one of your imaginary investors." "I'd put your hand down, Maxwell," I said softly, "while you still have use of it." "What?" Maxwell scoffed, turning fully to face the stairs. "Hey, you. We're in the middle of a private conversation here. Keep walking." Gwang-min didn't blink. He descended the stairs, one step at a time. Click, click, click. The sound of his leather shoes on the marble floor was the only sound in the room. Du-hwan, the lounge manager who had been cowering near the bar, suddenly rushed forward, his face pale and sweating. He looked like he was about to vomit. "Mr. Bang," Du-hwan squeaked, bowing so low his nose almost touched his knees. We weren't expecting you until the auction started. I can clear the VIP section immediately." Maxwell's arrogance faltered, just for a second. He looked at the terrified manager, then back at the man in the midnight blue suit. "Mr. Bang? Who is this guy?" "The owner." Gwang-min ignored the manager. He ignored the guests. He walked straight toward us. As he got closer, I saw the familiar details that grounded me, the slight scent of sandalwood and rain, the way his jaw set when he was holding back anger. He stopped 3 feet away from Maxwell. He was taller than Maxwell, broader in the shoulders, but it wasn't his size that was intimidating. It was his stillness. Maxwell was twitching, shifting his weight, looking around for validation. Gwang-min was a statue carved from obsidian. "Is there a problem?" Gwang-min asked. His voice was a deep baritone, smooth as velvet but heavy as lead. He spoke English with a precise, elegant accent. Maxwell puffed out his chest, sensing a challenge to his ego. "Yeah, there's a problem. This woman," he jerked a thumb at me, "is trespassing. I was just about to have her removed so the paying members don't have to deal with the riffraff." Gwang-min's eyes shifted to me. For the first time, the coldness vanished, replaced by a warmth that made my knees weak. It was a private look, a secret language we had built over months of late-night video calls and quiet dinners in Seoul. "Trespassing," Gwang-min repeated, the word rolling around his mouth like a bad taste. "Exactly," Maxwell said, emboldened. "She's my ex. A total head case. Burned out, broke, no class. I'm doing the club a favor." Gwang-min looked back at Maxwell. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. He looked like a man watching a fly buzz against a windowpane. "Henry," Gwang-min said, not raising his voice. From the shadows near the bar, Henry, the Western owner of the Sapphire Lounge, a man who usually carried himself like a king, shuffled forward. He looked terrified. "Yes, Mr. Bang? Who is this?" Gwang-min gestured vaguely at Maxwell with one hand. Maxwell's jaw dropped. "I'm Maxwell Patel. I'm a platinum member. I spend 50 grand a year here." Gwang-min didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on Henry. "Mr. Patel is a frequent guest," Henry stammered, wiping sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. "Is he?" Gwang-min tilted his head. He took a step closer to Maxwell, encroaching on his personal space. Maxwell instinctively stepped back, bumping into a high-top table. A glass of water wobbled, but didn't fall. "You said this woman is trespassing," Gwang-min said to Maxwell. "She is. She doesn't have a membership." Gwang-min slowly raised his right hand. The cuff of his shirt pulled back slightly, revealing the edge of a tattoo, dark ink tracing a clean ridge of mountains along his forearm, steady, immovable, inevitable. He reached out. Maxwell flinched, raising his hands as if to block a punch. But Gwang-min didn't strike him. He reached past Maxwell's shoulder and gently tucked a stray curl of my hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my cheek, a touch so tender it made my breath hitch. "Harper," Gwang-min said softly, his eyes searching mine. "Did he touch you?" The room was silent. Absolutely silent. 50 people were watching, but I only saw him. He grabbed my arm, I said quietly. Gwang-min's hand lingered on my cheek for a second longer, grounding me, before he pulled away. He turned back to Maxwell. The tenderness was gone. The storm was back. "You touched her," Gwang-min stated. It wasn't a question. I was escorting her out. Maxwell spluttered, his voice cracking. He looked around the room, desperate for an ally. "Henry, tell him. She's nobody." Henry looked at the floor. "Mr. Patel, I think you should stop talking." "Why?" Maxwell shouted, his face turning red. "Who is this guy? Why is everyone afraid of him?" Gwang-min adjusted his cufflinks. He looked at Sung-hyun by the door and gave a barely perceptible nod. Click. The sound of the electronic lock engaging on the main doors echoed through the lounge. Maxwell spun around. "Did you just lock the doors? That's false imprisonment. I'll sue you. I'll sue this whole damn place." "You asked who I am," Gwang-min said, stepping into Maxwell's path again, forcing him to look away from the doors. "And you said Harper is trespassing." Gwang-min reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Maxwell flinched again. Gwang-min pulled out a folded document and held it out. "This is the deed to the building," Gwang-min said calmly. "And the acquisition papers for the Sapphire Lounge brand. The transaction was finalized 10 minutes ago." Maxwell stared at the papers, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. You bought the club?" "I bought the building. I bought the land. I bought the debt." Gwang-min dropped the papers on the table next to Maxwell. "I bought it all." He turned to me, and for the first time a small, dangerous smile touched his lips. "Because my wife mentioned she liked the jazz band." The word hung in the air. "Wife." Maxwell froze. His eyes bulged. He looked from Gwang-min to me, his brain trying to compute the impossibility of it. "Wife? No, that's a lie. She's broke. She's damaged goods." Gwang-min didn't shout. He didn't rage. He simply took a step forward, invading Maxwell's space until the smaller man was pressed against the table. "You are confused," Gwang-min said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper that only we could hear. "You think you are a big man because you shout at waiters and grab women. But in my world, the loudest man is the first to die." He leaned in, his dark eyes boring into Maxwell's soul. "You called her damaged. I call her the architect of my peace. You threw her away. I climbed mountains to find her." Gwang-min straightened up, buttoning his jacket. He looked at Henry. "Revoke his membership." "Done," Henry said instantly. "Wait," Maxwell yelled, panic finally setting in. "You can't do that. My investors are here. My reputation." "Your reputation?" Gwang-min looked at him with pity. "Mr. Patel, by tomorrow morning, your investors will not take your calls. By noon, your bank accounts will be frozen for suspicious activity investigation. By dinner, you will be invisible. You can't do this." Maxwell screamed, lunging forward. Sung-hyun was there before Maxwell could take 2 steps. He didn't hit him. He simply intercepted him, gripping Maxwell's shoulder with a pressure point hold that made Maxwell drop to his knees with a gasp of pain. "I didn't say you could leave," Gwang-min said coldly. He turned to me, offering his arm. "Harper, are you ready?" I looked at Maxwell, kneeling on the floor, gasping, stripped of his dignity in under 3 minutes without a single punch being thrown. I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just the realization that he was small. I took Gwang-min's arm. The wool was warm. "I am good." Gwang-min looked at Do-hwan. "We will be in the diamond room. Send the band up." "And Do-hwan?" "Yes, sir. Clean up the trash on the floor." As we walked toward the private elevator, leaving Maxwell kneeling in the silence of the lounge, I realized that the real revenge wasn't making him scream. It was showing him that he no longer existed in my world. But as the elevator doors closed, shutting out the sight of my past, Gwang-min turned to me. The power dropped from his shoulders, and he looked at me with raw, unguarded concern. "Did he really hurt you?" he asked, his thumb brushing the skin of my arm where Maxwell had grabbed me. "I'm okay," I whispered. "I'm not," he said darkly. "He looked at you." Gwang-min. "He looked at you like he owned you." He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. "I don't like sharing." The elevator doors slid shut, sealing us in a box of silence and polished steel. The mirrored walls reflected us back, me in my emerald silk gown, chest heaving slightly now that the adrenaline was fading, and Gwang-min, a pillar of midnight blue wool and terrifying calm. He didn't move to the center of the car. He stayed close to the corner, watching me through the reflection. His eyes were dark, scanning my face for cracks in the porcelain. "You're shaking," he noted softly. "I'm angry," I corrected, though my hands were indeed trembling as I clutched my clutch purse. "I had it handled, Gwang-min. I didn't need you to buy the building." "You had it handled," he agreed, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in the small space. He took one step toward me. "You were magnificent. A queen refusing to bow to a peasant." He took another step. The air between us grew heavy, charged with a static electricity that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. "But just because you can handle a storm doesn't mean you should have to stand in the rain," he finished, stopping inches from me. He didn't touch me this time. He just existed in my space, his presence encompassing everything. "I told you, Harper. I am done watching you survive. I want you to live." I looked up at him, the fight draining out of me. It was hard to stay defensive when the man standing in front of you had just rearranged the skyline of the city to ensure your comfort. "You're impossible." "I am necessary," he countered, a ghost of a smirk touching his lips. The elevator chimed, announcing our arrival at the penthouse level, the diamond room. The doors opened directly into a space that smelled of leather, aged whiskey, and money. It was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city below. If you've ever had someone step in right when you thought you had to fight the world alone, leave a comment below. I want to hear your stories. I walked into the room, the plush carpet swallowing the sound of my heels. This was the sanctuary. Far below us, Maxwell was likely still kneeling on the marble floor, or perhaps being dragged out the back exit by Sung-hyun's team. But up here, the chaos of the world felt abstract. I moved to the wet bar, pouring myself a glass of sparkling water just to give my hands something to do. My reflection in the dark window caught my eye. 2 years ago, seeing Maxwell would have broken me. I remembered the night he left, the way I had collapsed on the floor of our empty apartment, hyperventilating, checking my phone every 10 seconds for a text that never came. I had been so loud in my grief. So messy. But the woman in the window was different. Her posture was straight. Her eyes were dry. I thought about the months I spent using that cognitive behavioral therapy app, retraining my brain to stop spiraling. I thought about the weekly video sessions with Dr. Eris in Zurich, learning to detach my self-worth from other people's approval. It was an investment, thousands of dollars I barely had at the time, but it had paid off tonight. When Maxwell sneered, I didn't feel shame. I felt clinical detachment. "What are you thinking about?" Gwang-min asked. He had taken off his jacket, draping it over a leather armchair. The white dress shirt beneath was crisp, emphasizing the width of his shoulders. He began to roll up his sleeves, his movements slow and deliberate. "I'm thinking that therapy was worth every penny," I murmured, turning to face him. He paused, his hand hovering over his cufflinks. "He didn't break you." "No," I said. "He bored me." Gwang-min's eyes darkened. He finished rolling up his sleeves, revealing the strong cords of his forearms and the beginning of that mountain ridge tattoo. He walked over to me, taking the glass of water from my hand and setting it on the counter without breaking eye contact. Boredom is the ultimate insult to a narcissist, he said. He reached out, his hands settling on my waist. His thumbs brushed the silk of my dress, sending shivers racing down my spine. But you were still tense. I saw your jaw. You were holding your breath. Old habits, I whispered. Being this close to him was always overwhelming. It wasn't just the physical attraction, though God knows, looking at him made my mouth dry, it was the safety. With Maxwell, I had always felt like I was auditioning for a role I couldn't quite master. With Gwang-min, I was just there. Breathe, Harper, he commanded softly. I exhaled, letting my forehead rest against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady, slow, powerful. It was the rhythm of a man who never panicked. Why did you buy the club? I asked into his shirt. Really? Because he made you feel unwelcome in it, he answered simply. And because I need a new location for the merger talks next month. The acoustics are good. I laughed, the sound muffled against his chest. You're practical. I am efficient. He pulled back slightly, tilting my chin up with his knuckle. And I am protective. You know this. I know, I said. But Maxwell, he's petty. He's going to try to retaliate. He knows people in the media. He'll try to spin this. Gwang-min's expression didn't change, but the air in the room dropped a few degrees again. Let him try. A man who screams at the ocean only drowns faster. A soft knock on the heavy oak door interrupted us. Gwang-min didn't let go of my waist immediately. He lingered for a second, marking his territory, before stepping back and nodding. Enter. The door opened and Sung-hyun walked in. He looked unruffled, not a hair out of place, though I noticed a small smear of something red on his knuckle that he quickly wiped away with his thumb. Report, Gwang-min said, his voice shifting from lover to warlord in a split second. Mr. Patel has been removed from the premises, Sung-hyun said, his voice flat. He attempted to resist outside the service entrance. He was discouraged. Did he make calls? Yes, sir. He called 3 members of the board for his tech firm. None of them answered. Gwang-min walked over to the desk near the window, picking up a tablet. Of course they didn't answer. They are currently at a dinner hosted by my holding company. They are very busy discussing the acquisition of their debt. My eyes widened. I walked over to the desk. Gwang-min, you own Maxwell's debt? He tapped the screen, bringing up a complex web of financial data. I didn't seek it out, Harper. But when I decided to clear the path for you, I had my analysts look into his empire. It's a house of cards. He leverages one company to fund the next. It's a Ponzi scheme wrapped in a tailored suit. He looked at me, his face devoid of malice, just cold, hard facts. I simply bought the loans. Tomorrow, I will call them in. He won't just be banned from a club. He will be liquidated. I stared at the screen. The numbers were staggering. Maxwell had always bragged about his wealth, flashing his watches and cars. But looking at this, I saw the truth. He was drowning in debt. He called me a failure, I whispered, the irony settling in. He told me I was one step away from the street. Projection, Gwang-min said. He was describing himself. Suddenly, the phone in Sung-hyun's hand buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then frowned. Sir, it's the front desk. Mr. Patel is back. Back? Gwang-min's eyebrows rose. He is persistent. He's in the lobby. He's live streaming. Gwang-min sighed, a sound of deep, weary disappointment. Of course he is. Bring it up. Sung-hyun tapped a few keys on the wall panel, and a large monitor hidden behind a mirror flared to life. It showed the security feed from the lobby of the Sapphire Lounge. There was Maxwell. His tie was crooked, his hair disheveled, and he was holding his phone up high, shouting into the camera. A small crowd of confused onlookers stood behind him. I'm telling you. Maxwell's voice tinny through the speakers. I was assaulted. They stole my property. This is discrimination. That man, he's a criminal. And Harper Johnson is in on it. She's a grifter. He was unraveling. It was painful to watch. He looked manic, his eyes wild, spit flying from his mouth. He is digging his own grave, Sung-hyun observed. No, Gwang-min said, his eyes narrowing. He is making noise. And noise annoys me. He looked at me. Do you want to leave through the private exit? You don't have to see this. I looked at the screen. I saw Maxwell, the man who had made me feel small for 5 years. The man who told me I was too loud, too emotional, too much. And now here he was, screaming like a toddler while I stood in a penthouse, protected by a man who treated me like art. I realized something then. Hiding would be easy. But I was done hiding. No, I said, smoothing the silk of my dress. He's streaming, right? That means the world is watching. Yes, Gwang-min said, watching me closely. Then let's give them a show. I turned to Gwang-min. You said you bought the building. Does that mean you own the lobby? I own everything down to the bedrock, he confirmed. Then I want to go down there. Harper, Gwang-min warned, stepping closer. He is desperate. Desperate men are dangerous. He's not dangerous, I said, meeting his gaze. He's just loud. And I want to look him in the eye one last time. I want him to see that I'm not afraid. Gwang-min studied my face for a long moment. He was looking for hesitation. He found none. Slowly, a look of fierce pride replaced the concern in his eyes. He reached out and took my hand, lifting it to his lips. He kissed my knuckles, his eyes never leaving mine. As you wish, my love, he whispered against my skin. But we do not walk. We descend. He turned to Sung-hyun. Prepare the lobby. And kill the music. Yes, sir. As we walked back to the elevator, Gwang-min didn't let go of my hand. His grip was firm, not tight like Maxwell's had been, but grounding. An anchor. If you're enjoying this story of justice and romance, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more stories like this to life. The elevator ride down felt different. Going up, we had been escaping. Going down, we were invading. I checked my reflection one last time. My lipstick was perfect. My hair was sleek. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like the CEO of my own life. The doors opened on the ground floor. The lobby was chaos. Maxwell was still shouting, pacing back and forth in front of the reception desk, filming himself. And that's why you can't trust these people. They think money buys everything. Well, it doesn't buy. The music in the lobby cut out abruptly. The silence that followed was jarring. Maxwell stopped mid-sentence. He turned around, phone still held high. We stepped out of the elevator. Gwang-min didn't look at the camera. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked only at Maxwell. And in that moment, the difference in power was absolute. Maxwell was a man screaming for attention. Gwang-min was a man who commanded it without speaking a word. Maxwell, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the sudden silence, it carried to every corner of the room. Maxwell's camera swung toward me. There she is. The gold digger. Tell them, Harper. Tell them how you. Put the phone down, Maxwell, I said. You look exhausted. Exhausted? He laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. I'm just getting started. You think you can embarrass me? You think you can just replace me with this gangster? He pointed the phone at Gwang-min. Say hello to the internet, buddy. Who are you really? Some money launderer? Some. Gwang-min moved. He didn't run. He just closed the distance. He walked right up to the phone, his face filling the screen. He looked into the lens with a boredom that was more insulting than hatred. Then he reached out. With 2 fingers, he plucked the phone from Maxwell's hand. Hey, Maxwell shouted. That's my property. Gwang-min looked at the phone. He saw the live stream comments scrolling by, people asking what was happening, people laughing at Maxwell, people asking who the man in the blue suit was. This is boring, Gwang-min said to the phone. Then he dropped it. He didn't throw it. He just opened his hand. The phone hit the marble floor. Crack. The screen shattered. The feed went black. Maxwell stared at the broken device. His lifeline to the world. His audience. Gone. You broke my phone, he whispered, his voice trembling. I will buy you a new one, Gwang-min said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a money clip. He peeled off a crisp bill, a denomination I couldn't even see clearly, and tucked it into Maxwell's breast pocket. Keep the change. Maxwell stood there, the bill sticking out of his pocket like a badge of shame. The crowd in the lobby had gone deadly silent. Some people were holding their breath. Go home, Maxwell, I said. Before you lose something you can't replace. Maxwell looked at me. His eyes were wet. The bravado was cracking, revealing the scared, insecure boy underneath. You think you've won, he hissed, backing away toward the revolving doors. But you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know what I have on you. I have nothing to hide, I said calmly. We'll see, he spat. We'll see who's smiling when I release the... He stopped. Gwang-min had taken one step forward. Just one. Maxwell turned and fled. He pushed through the revolving doors, stumbling out into the cool night air, running away from the silence he couldn't fill. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Gwang-min turned to me. He is threatening to release something. What is it? I frowned, thinking back. What could he have? Emails? Old photos? I don't know. Maybe he's bluffing. He used to record our arguments sometimes. To prove I was crazy. Recordings, Gwang-min mused. His jaw tightened. If he releases private moments. He will try, I said, feeling a new kind of resolve. But let him. People can hear me cry. It just shows I'm human. No, Gwang-min said. He will not release them. He looked at Sung-hyun, who was already on his phone, speaking rapidly in Korean. We need the cloud, Gwang-min said to his head of security. Find where he stores his data. Buy the server farm if you have to. Burn it down if you must. But nothing of my wife's touches the internet. Sir, Sung-hyun nodded, walking away to execute the order. Gwang-min, I said, touching his arm. You can't just burn down a server farm. He looked at me, his eyes innocent. I can buy it. Then it is my property. I can do what I want with my property. He pulled me into his side, his arm wrapping around me like a shield. Come. The car is waiting. We have a gala to attend, and you look too beautiful to be standing in a lobby. As we walked toward the waiting black sedan, I looked back at the shattered phone on the floor. Maxwell was gone, but the threat lingered in the air like ozone after a lightning strike. He was cornered. And cornered rats bite. But as I slid into the leather backseat of Gwang-min's car, I realized something. I wasn't the one in the cage anymore. The interior of the Maybach was a capsule of silence. The city lights of Seoul, or was it New York? It didn't matter. The city was just a backdrop now, blurred into streaks of gold and red against the tinted windows. I sat in the corner of the leather seat, my knees pressed together, watching the world slide by. My hands were in my lap, still clutched around my purse as if I expected someone to try and snatch it. Harper. Gwang-min's voice was low, a vibration that traveled through the leather seat and settled in my chest. He wasn't looking out the window. He was looking at me. You are still gripping that bag like a weapon, he observed gently. I looked down. My knuckles were white. I'm just thinking. About him. About what he said. About the recordings. I took a shaky breath, finally releasing my death grip on the purse. Gwang-min, if he has audio of me having a panic attack or begging him to stay, and he puts that online, it won't just be embarrassing. It could hurt the brand. My investors look for stability. Gwang-min reached across the center console. He didn't take my hand this time. Instead, he placed his palm flat on my knee. The heat of his skin burned through the silk of my dress, grounding me instantly. Stability is not the absence of emotion, Harper. It is the ability to endure it. His thumb began to rub a slow, hypnotic circle on my knee. Let him release his tapes. Let the world hear you in pain. Do you know what they will hear? Weakness, I whispered. No, he said firmly. They will hear a woman who is fighting to survive a man who is trying to drown her. And then they will look at you now, standing beside me, building your own empire, and they will see that you won. Survival is the ultimate status symbol. I looked at him, tears prickling the corners of my eyes. How did he always do that? How did he take my deepest insecurities and reframe them as armor? You make it sound so simple, I said. It is simple. He leaned back, his hand remaining on my knee. There are wolves and there are sheep. For a long time, you thought you were a sheep because you were kind. But you are not a sheep, Harper. You are a wolf who forgot how to hunt. The car slowed, turning off the main highway and winding up a private road lined with tall pines. We were heading to the sanctuary, the glass house perched on the cliffs, the place Gwang-min had built before we met, but which felt like it had been waiting for me. If you've ever had to relearn your own strength after a toxic relationship, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. The car came to a stop in the underground garage. The heavy concrete walls blocked out the signal, the noise, the rest of the world. Here, there was only the hum of the engine cooling and the scent of polished concrete. Sung-hyun opened my door before I could move. We have arrived, Mrs. Bang. I stepped out, my heels clicking on the epoxy floor. Thank you, Sung-hyun. Any update on the data? Sung-hyun paused, looking over the roof of the car at Gwang-min for permission to speak. Gwang-min nodded once, sharp and efficient. We have located the cloud backup service Mr. Patel uses, Sung-hyun reported, his face impassive. Our legal team has already served the provider with a cease and desist based on copyright infringement and defamation. The account has been temporarily locked pending investigation. Locked? I let out a breath. So he can't upload anything? Not tonight, Sung-hyun said. He is currently locked out of his own digital life. He cannot access his email, his cloud, or his banking apps. You locked his banking apps? I asked, looking at Gwang-min. Gwang-min shrugged, adjusting his jacket as he walked around the car to join me. I told you. I bought the debt. The bank is simply reviewing the risk profile of a volatile client. He offered his arm. Come. The air down here is stale. We took the private elevator up to the main living area. When the doors opened, the home of glass and light lived up to its name. The walls were floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city grid far below. The furniture was low, modern, and Italian, cream leather and dark wood. It was stark, clean, and breathtakingly expensive. But it wasn't cold. Not anymore. Gwang-min walked straight to the sound system and pressed a button. Soft, instrumental cello music filled the room, replacing the silence. Then he walked to the bar. Whiskey, he asked. Tea, I said, kicking off my heels and letting my toes sink into the plush rug. Chamomile. I need to come down. Chamomile, he repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. He began to prepare it, his movements precise. He didn't treat making tea as a chore, he treated it like a ritual. I walked to the window, pressing my hand against the cool glass. From up here, the cars looked like toys. Somewhere down there, Maxwell was probably frantic, trying to log into accounts that no longer recognized him, calling friends who weren't picking up. I should have felt guilty. I was raised to be nice. I was raised to turn the other cheek. But looking at my reflection, the emerald dress, the diamond earrings Gwang-min had given me for our anniversary, the straight spine, I realized that nice had almost killed me. Gwang-min came up behind me. He didn't touch me at first. He just stood close enough that I could feel his body heat radiating against my back. Here, he said softly, reaching around to place the steaming mug in my hands. Thank you. I brought the cup to my face, inhaling the floral steam. Turn around, he commanded. I turned. He was looking at me with an intensity that made my stomach flip. He reached out and slowly, deliberately, began to unpin my hair. You wear it up for them, he murmured as the pins clattered onto the side table. But I like it down. My curls fell around my shoulders. Gwang-min ran his fingers through them, massaging my scalp. My eyes fluttered closed. The tension in my neck, the headache that had been threatening to start since the lobby confrontation, began to dissolve under his touch. You were brave tonight, he said. I was terrified. That is what makes it brave. His hands moved down to my shoulders, his thumbs pressing into the tight knots of muscle. Maxwell is a man of noise. He thinks power is shouting. He thinks intimacy is control. He stepped closer, his hips brushing against mine. He never knew you, Harper. He only knew the version of you he could break. I looked up at him, my breath hitching. And you? Which version do you know? Gwang-min's eyes dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. I know the version who rebuilt herself. I know the architect. He leaned down, brushing his lips against my forehead. It wasn't a demanding kiss. It was a benediction. Go change, he whispered against my skin. Take off the armor. Put on something soft. I will handle the rest of the world for tonight. I nodded, unable to speak, and retreated to the master bedroom. As I changed out of the gown and into a silk robe, I heard Gwang-min's phone ring in the living room. The music lowered automatically. I froze, my hand on the doorframe, listening. Speak, Gwang-min said. His voice was no longer the soft velvet he used with me. It was the sharp, jagged glass of the businessman. There was a pause. He is at the police station? Gwang-min asked. A dark chuckle followed. Let him file a report. He is reporting that I broke his phone? Good. Send a lawyer down there to pay for it. Make sure the lawyer drives the Bentley. I want him to see it. Another pause. No, Gwang-min said, his voice dropping an octave. Do not engage with the press yet. Let him spin his story. Let him lie. The more he lies, the deeper the hole. I walked back into the living room, wrapping the robe tighter around myself. Gwang-min was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his other hand in his pocket. He looked like a king surveying a battlefield. He sensed me enter and turned. His expression softened instantly, but he didn't hang up. Hold, he said to the person on the line. He covered the microphone. Are you comfortable? Yes, I said softly. Good. Sung-hyun says Maxwell is trying to file a restraining order against me. I blinked. Can he do that? He can try. But he has to prove a threat. Gwang-min smiled, a predatory expression that didn't reach his eyes. I haven't threatened him. I have only been charitable. I bought his favorite club. I offered to replace his phone. I am a model citizen. You're terrifying, I said, walking over to the couch and curling up. I am thorough. He lifted the phone back to his ear. Proceed with phase 2. Call the loans. All of them. Tonight. He hung up and tossed the phone onto the coffee table. It slid across the surface, coming to a stop next to my tea. He sat down next to me, not too close, respecting my space, but near enough that I could reach him. He loosened his tie, pulling it from his collar and draping it over the armrest. Phase 2. I asked, watching him. Financial constriction, he explained. Maxwell's companies rely on a line of credit from a bank in Hong Kong. My holding company acquired that bank 3 weeks ago. You've been planning this for 3 weeks? I have been planning this since the day I saw you cry over an email he sent you, Gwang-min corrected. I do not rush, Harper. Revenge is a dish best served cold, yes. But justice? Justice is a dish best served with absolute precision. He turned his body toward me, resting his arm along the back of the sofa. But enough of him. He is a ghost. Let's talk about us. Us. I smiled weakly. We're a bit of a mess, aren't we? A broken woman and I trailed off, not sure what to call him. A tycoon? A savior? A monster? A protector, he finished for me. And you are not broken. You are a mosaic. The cracks are where the light gets in. He reached out and traced the line of my jaw with his index finger. How is the therapy going? He asked unexpectedly. Dr. Eris? It's hard, I admitted. We're working on hyper-independence. Apparently, I have a hard time letting people help me because I equate need with danger. A logical survival mechanism, Gwang-min nodded. Given your history. She says I need to practice safe surrender. Trusting someone to catch me. Gwang-min's eyes darkened. He moved his hand from my jaw to the nape of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair. Safe surrender, he murmured, testing the words. I like that. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. I could smell the scotch on his breath, mixed with the mint he must have had in the car. I will never drop you, Harper, he whispered. You can fall as hard as you want. I will be the floor. I will be the net. I will be the gravity. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the quiet power I had fallen for. Not the flashiness of Maxwell, but this absolute, unshakable certainty. Kiss me, I breathed. He didn't hesitate. He closed the gap, his lips capturing mine in a kiss that was slow, deep, and devastating. It wasn't frantic. It was a claim. It was a promise. For a moment, the world stopped. There were no servers, no debts, no ex-boyfriends screaming in lobbies. There was only the taste of him, the strength of his hand on my neck, and the feeling of finally coming home. But the world has a way of intruding. My phone, which I had left on the side table, lit up. It didn't ring, I had it on silent, but the screen flashed bright in the dim room. I tried to ignore it, deepening the kiss, but Gwang-min pulled back slightly. He was always alert, always watching. Your phone, he whispered against my lips. Ignore it, I said, reaching for him again. It has flashed 3 times in 5 seconds, he noted. That is not a casual text. That is a pattern. I sighed, the spell breaking. I sat up and reached for the device. It's probably just my sister asking if I'm okay. She saw the live stream. I picked up the phone. It wasn't my sister. It was a notification from a burner email address. No subject line. Just an attachment. My blood ran cold. What is it? Gwang-min asked, his voice sharpening instantly. It's an audio file, I stammered. From Anonymous. I tapped the screen. My finger hovered over the play button. Don't, Gwang-min said. But I had to know. I pressed play. Static. Then my voice. Younger, higher-pitched, frantic. Maxwell, please. Please don't go. I can't pay the rent on my own. You promised. You said we were partners. Then Maxwell's voice, cold and sneering. I promised to be with a winner, Harper. Look at you. You're pathetic. You're crying on the floor over $1,000. You're dead weight. My voice again, sobbing. I just lost my dad. Please. I just need a month. The audio cut off. I stared at the phone, the old shame washing over me like toxic sludge. I felt small again. I felt like the girl on the floor. He sent it to me, I whispered. He's taunting me. Gwang-min took the phone from my hand. He didn't look at the screen. He looked at me. He sent it to you, Gwang-min said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Did he send it to anyone else? I don't know. Gwang-min stood up. The seduction was gone. The protector was back, and he was ready for war. Sung-hyun, he called out, his voice booming through the open concept apartment. The head of security appeared from the hallway instantly, a tablet in hand. Sir. He has a local copy. He emailed it directly to Harper. Trace the IP. Already on it, sir. The email originated from an internet cafe in Gangnam. He is not using his own device. Smart, Gwang-min muttered. He is learning. He turned to me. I was curling in on myself, the shame burning my cheeks. Harper, Gwang-min said. Look at me. I couldn't. Harper. He knelt in front of me. He took my hands and pulled them away from my face. That voice on the tape? That is not you. That is a ghost. Do you hear me? It sounds like me, I choked out. It sounds weak. It sounds like a daughter grieving her father, Gwang-min said fiercely. And a man exploiting that grief for power. If he releases this, he thinks he will shame you. But he is wrong. He stood up, pulling me with him. We are going to release it first. I stared at him. What? If he holds the knife, he can stab you, Gwang-min said. If you take the knife, you can cut the ropes. You want me to post that? I asked, horrified. No. I want you to own it. Write the narrative before he does. He walked to the window, looking out at the city. Sung-hyun, get the PR team on the line. And tell them to draft a statement. Title it, The Price of Silence. He turned back to me, his silhouette framed by the city lights. Tonight, we do not sleep, my love. Tonight, we hunt. Are you sure? Gwang-min asked. He held his phone, the newest model, sleek and black, steady in his hand. We were not in a studio. We were sitting on the floor of his living room, the city lights of Seoul glittering behind us like a galaxy of indifferent stars. I was wearing one of his white dress shirts over my silk robe, the sleeves rolled up past my elbows. I wore no makeup. My hair was loose and messy. I'm sure, I said, my voice steady. Hit record. Gwang-min nodded. His eyes were dark pools of pride. He tapped the screen. Go. I looked into the lens. 2 years ago, I would have flinched. I would have worried about my angles, my lighting, my imperfections. Now, I just saw a tool. Hi, I started, speaking to the millions of invisible eyes. My name is Harper Johnson. By now, or very soon, you might hear an audio recording of me. In it, I am crying. I am begging a man to stay. I am terrified because I can't pay my rent. I took a breath. Gwang-min didn't move. He was a statue of support, his presence filling the room with a silent, heavy comfort. The man who released that recording thinks it exposes me as weak, I continued, my voice gaining strength. He thinks that hearing me at my lowest point, grieving my father, broke and scared, will make you look away in disgust. He calls it damage. But I call it the starting line. I leaned forward, looking straight into the camera lens, imagining Maxwell's face on the other side. That girl in the recording? She survived. She built a company. She healed her mind. And she learned that a man who weaponizes your vulnerability is not a partner. He is a predator. So, listen to the tape. Hear my pain. And then watch me rise. I signaled Gwang-min to cut. Perfect, he whispered, lowering the phone. Post it, I said. Before he does. Gwang-min handed the phone to Sung-hyun, who had been standing silently in the shadows of the kitchen. Upload it to all platforms. Tag Mr. Patel's companies. And boost it. Boost it? I asked. I want everyone to see it, Gwang-min said, standing up and pulling me to my feet. I want to turn his grenade into a fireworks show for you. Within 10 minutes, the video was live. Within 20, it was trending. We sat on the couch, watching the world react. I expected hate. I expected trolling. But something else happened. The comments weren't mocking. They were validating. I've been there. Stay strong. That takes guts. Who is the ex? Let's find him. Maxwell had tried to paint a picture of a gold digger. Instead, he had accidentally painted a portrait of a survivor. He miscalculated, Gwang-min observed, scrolling through the feed on his tablet with a detached, clinical satisfaction. He forgot that people despise a bully more than they despise a victim. If you've ever turned a moment of weakness into your greatest strength, hit that like button. I want to know I'm not alone. Just then, Sung-hyun stepped forward. Sir. The internet cafe. Yes. Mr. Patel has just tried to upload the file to a gossip forum. The upload failed. The moderators flagged it as harassment immediately after your video went viral. He is agitated. Agitated, Gwang-min mused, testing the word. Let's increase the pressure. He picked up his other phone, the one he used for business. He dialed a number. He didn't put it on speaker, but in the quiet room, I could hear the sharp ringtone on the other end. Mr. Lee, Gwang-min said when the line connected. The credit lines for Patel Tech. Yes. Call them in. All of them. Tonight. He listened for a moment, his face impassive. I don't care about the penalty fees. Trigger the default clause. He missed a payment on his warehouse lease 3 months ago? Good. Use that. Seize the assets. He hung up. What did you just do? I asked, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I just turned off his lights, Gwang-min said softly. He walked over to the wet bar and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass. Maxwell is about to learn that money is not just currency. It is ammunition. An hour later, the atmosphere in the glass house had shifted. The tension of the attack was gone, replaced by the grim waiting game of the siege. I was dozing on Gwang-min's shoulder, exhausted by the emotional toll of the night, when the intercom buzzed. It was a harsh, jarring sound in the sanctuary. Sung-hyun looked at the security monitor. His expression tightened. "Sir." "It is him." I sat up straight, sleep vanishing instantly. "Maxwell?" "Here." "He is at the main gate," Sung-hyun reported. "He is in his car." He is repeatedly ramming the intercom button. "He found us," I whispered. "How did he find us?" "He didn't find us," Gwang-min corrected, his voice calm but dangerous. "He found the only address associated with the company that just seized his assets. He thinks he is coming to negotiate with a bank. He does not know who lives here." Gwang-min stood up. He buttoned his cuffs. He adjusted his collar. He looked immaculate, untouched, and terrifyingly ready. "Sung-hyun," he said. "Open the gate." "Gwang-min." I grabbed his hand. "No. Don't let him in. He's unstable." "He is broken," Gwang-min said, looking down at me. "And a broken thing needs to be discarded properly. If I leave him at the gate, he will scream all night. If I bring him in, I can end this." "I'm coming with you," I said. "No." "Yes." I stood up, tightening the belt of the robe over his shirt. "He's my ghost, Gwang-min. I need to be the one to exorcise him." Gwang-min studied my face. He saw the fear, yes, but he also saw the resolve. The therapy, the work, the rebuilding, it all led to this. "Very well," he said. "But you stand behind me. Always." We took the elevator down to the courtyard. The night air was cool and smelled of pine and distant rain. The floodlights clicked on, illuminating the circular driveway with a harsh, clinical white light. The gate slid open. A flashy red sports car leased, I now knew, screeched into the driveway. It stopped inches from where Gwang-min stood. The door flew open. Maxwell stumbled out. He looked like a wreck. His tie was gone, his shirt was stained with sweat, and his eyes were wide and bloodshot. He was holding a stack of papers, the foreclosure notices. "Who is the CEO?" Maxwell screamed at the empty air, not seeing us in the shadows yet. "I want to speak to the CEO. You can't just seize my accounts. I have rights." "I have." He stopped. Gwang-min stepped into the pool of light. Maxwell blinked, squinting against the glare. Then, recognition dawned. His mouth fell open. The papers slipped from his hand, fluttering to the pavement like dead leaves. "You," Maxwell whispered. It was you?" "Hello, Maxwell," Gwang-min said. His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed off the concrete walls of the house. "You look lost." "You bought the bank," Maxwell said, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and horror. "You bought the club. You bought the debt. Why? Who are you?" "I am the man who cleans up messes," Gwang-min said, taking a slow step forward. Maxwell's eyes darted past Gwang-min and landed on me. I stepped into the light, standing just behind Gwang-min's right shoulder. "Harper," Maxwell choked out. "Harper, tell him. Tell him this is insane. He's ruining me." "You ruined yourself, Maxwell," I said. My voice was calm. It didn't shake. "You built a life on debt and cruelty." Gwang-min just pulled the loose thread. "We were partners," Maxwell shouted, taking a step toward me. "I made you." Sung-hyun materialized from the shadows, stepping between Maxwell and us. He didn't raise a weapon. He just stood there, hands loosely clasped, radiating a violence that didn't need to be demonstrated. Maxwell stopped, his chest heaving. "You want to know why?" Gwang-min asked, drawing Maxwell's attention back to him. "Yeah," Maxwell spat. "I want to know why you destroyed my life over a girl you met 2 months ago." "She is not a girl," Gwang-min said, his voice dropping to that terrifying whisper. "And she is not just someone I met. She is my wife." Maxwell froze. "You keep saying that." "It's a lie. She didn't marry you." Gwang-min reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He didn't open it. He just held it. "We married in Seoul 6 months ago," Gwang-min lied, or was it a lie? In his world, a promise was as binding as a contract. But we haven't had the ceremony yet. I was waiting for the trash to be taken out. He tossed the velvet box to me. I caught it, surprised. Maxwell, Gwang-min continued. Look at your car. Look at your clothes. They are not yours anymore. The bank owns them. And I own the bank. So what? Maxwell sneered, though he was backing away. You going to kill me? There are cameras. Kill you. Gwang-min laughed softly. It was a dry, humorless sound. Why would I kill you? That would make you a victim. I don't want you to be a victim. I want you to be a lesson. Gwang-min checked his watch. You have 10 minutes before the repo team arrives for the car. The police are already on their way regarding the attempted blackmail. And the tax authorities, well, let's just say they found the audit of your consulting fees very interesting. Maxwell looked at his car, then at the gate, then at us. The walls were closing in. Harper, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Please, call him off. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry I left you. I'm sorry about the tape. Just help me. I looked at the man who had defined my worth for 5 years. He was small. He was pathetic. And he was irrelevant. I looked at Gwang-min, the man who had moved mountains just to make sure I had a quiet place to drink my tea. I can't help you, Maxwell, I said softly. I'm too busy living. I turned my back on him. Gwang-min? I'm cold. Can we go inside? Of course, my love. As we walked back toward the elevator, leaving Maxwell standing in the driveway amidst the scattered papers of his ruined life, I heard the distant wail of sirens approaching up the canyon road. The storm was over. The silence of the penthouse was different now. Before, it had been a waiting silence, a held breath. Now it was the silence of a church after a wedding or a battlefield after the treaty is signed. Heavy, holy, and final. We stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down. The red and blue lights of the police cruisers were tiny toys far below, silent flashes in the dark canyon. We watched as the tow truck hooked up the red sports car. We watched as a figure was guided into the back of a squad car. Maxwell didn't fight. From this height, he was just a speck. A glitch in the system that had been corrected. It's over, I whispered, my breath fogging the glass slightly. It was over the moment he touched you, Gwang-min corrected. He was standing behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin resting on the top of my head. He felt solid, a wall of muscle and midnight blue wool that separated me from the rest of the world. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box he had tossed to me in the driveway. I had set it on the console table when we walked in, too shaken to open it. You said we were married, I said, turning in his arms to face him. You lied to him. Gwang-min looked at me, his dark eyes unreadable. I do not lie, Harper. I project the future into the present until it becomes the truth. He took the box from my hand and opened it. Inside sat a diamond that made the city lights look dim. It wasn't a flashy, tacky rock like the one Maxwell had once pointed out in a window and said I wasn't ready for yet. This was an emerald cut, flawless and clear, set in a band of dark, brushed platinum. It was understated. It was heavy. It was permanent. I bought this 3 months ago, Gwang-min said softly. I kept it in the safe. I told myself I would not put it on your finger until you were free. Until you could look at it and see a promise, not a cage. He took the ring out of the box. He didn't kneel. Gwang-min wasn't a man who begged. He was a man who stood eye to eye with his partner. You are the architect of your own life now, he said, taking my left hand. You have rebuilt the foundation. You have cleared the debris. Now I am asking for the contract to build the rest of it with you. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He was thorough. Harper Johnson, he whispered, lifting my hand to kiss the ring. Will you be my wife? For real this time. No lies. No ghosts. I looked at the ring, then at him. The man who had bought a building to stop a bully. The man who had listened to my therapy stories without judgment. The man who saw my scars and called them a map. Yes, I breathed. Yes, Gwang-min. He didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He simply closed his eyes and let out a long exhale, as if he had been holding his breath for months. He pulled me into him, burying his face in my neck. Finally, he groaned against my skin. Finally, you're safe. If you love stories where the nice girl finally wins by choosing herself and the man who worships her, make sure to subscribe. We have so many more stories to tell. Later that night, the house was dark. The city slept, or at least, it pretended to. We lay in the massive bed, the sheets cool against my skin. I was wearing one of Gwang-min's t-shirts, feeling smaller and safer than I ever had in my life. Gwang-min was awake, staring at the ceiling, one arm tucked behind his head, the other draped protectively over me. What will happen to him? I asked quietly into the darkness. Maxwell. Gwang-min's voice was a deep rumble in his chest. He will face the consequences of his own arithmetic. Fraud is a serious crime. Blackmail is another. He will spend the next few years very busy with lawyers who cost more than he has. Do you feel bad? No. He turned his head to look at me. Do you feel bad when you remove a tumor? I thought about it. I thought about the panic attacks. The nights I spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was crazy. The way I had shrunk myself to fit into a small, loud world. No, I admit it. I feel light. Good. Gwang-min shifted, pulling me on top of him. His hands ran down my back, warm and possessing. Then let us never speak his name again. He is a footnote in your biography. I am the rest of the book. He kissed me then, and it wasn't the gentle kiss of the hallway or the protective kiss of the car. It was a hungry, devastating thing. It was the quiet power unleashed. There was no desperation in his touch, only mastery. He didn't rush. He took his time, worshipping every inch of skin, erasing every memory of a touch that hadn't been kind. When his hands moved over me, I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like a survivor. I felt like a queen. Look at me, he commanded softly, his eyes locking onto mine in the dim light. You are mine. Not because I own you, but because you chose me. I chose you, I whispered back, my hands tangling in his hair. I choose you every day. The rest of the night was a blur of sensation, the friction of skin, the heavy rhythm of breath, the absolute certainty of being loved by a man who could burn down the world for you, but chose to build a home instead. The morning sun hit the glass walls of the house, turning the room into a prism of gold and white light. I woke up alone in the bed. For a split second, a reflex from the old life, panic flared in my chest. Where is he? Did he leave? Was it too much? Then I smelled coffee. Rich, expensive espresso. I sat up, the sheet falling away. I looked at my left hand. The diamond caught the morning sun, throwing rainbows across the duvet. It wasn't a dream. I got out of bed, grabbing a silk robe, and walked out into the living area. Gwang-min was on the balcony. He was wearing gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt, looking effortlessly domestic. He was leaning against the railing, holding a mug of coffee, looking out at the skyline. He heard my bare feet on the floorboards and turned. His face broke into a smile, a real one, soft and unguarded, that I knew he saved only for me. Good morning, Mrs. Bang, he said. Good morning, I smiled, walking over to him. He handed me a mug. I made it how you like. Honey, no sugar. You remember everything. It is my job. I took a sip, letting the warmth spread through me. I leaned against the railing next to him, looking out at the city. It looked different today. It didn't look like a maze I had to survive. It looked like a playground. My phone has been buzzing all morning, Gwang-min mentioned casually. Oh no. Is it the press? It is your investors, he said. And 3 new venture capital firms. Apparently, your video struck a nerve. They want to back the woman who stood up to the bully. Your pre-orders for the app have tripled overnight. I choked on my coffee. Tripled. Authenticity sells, Harper. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You stopped trying to be perfect, and you became irresistible. I looked at him, feeling a swell of emotion that threatened to spill over. I didn't do it alone, I said. No empire is built alone, he agreed. But you laid the first brick. I just provided the security fence. He pulled me into a hug, and we stood there for a long time, watching the city wake up. The noise of the traffic was far away, a distant hum that couldn't touch us up here in the clouds. I thought about the girl I was 2 years ago, scared, small, apologizing for taking up space. And I thought about the woman standing on this balcony, loved, wealthy in spirit and bank account, and wearing a diamond that felt like a shield. Gwang-min. Yes, my love. Thank you. For the silence. He kissed the top of my head. The world is loud, Harper. But in this house, there is only peace. I closed my eyes, listening to the beat of his heart. It was steady. It was strong. It was the rhythm of my new life. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just standing. If you enjoyed Harper and Gwang-min's story, please like the video and subscribe. Let me know in the comments, what kind of quiet power story should I tell next? A billionaire CEO? A bodyguard? The choice is yours.